Rami sat quietly in his small apartment on Earth, staring at the strange object on his table. It was a thin, golden envelope, glowing softly with a light he had never seen before. The edges were decorated with strange symbols that seemed to move, like living things. He had never received anything like this in his life. He picked up the envelope and turned it over. No sender was written on it. Instead, there was only a single word, written in a language he had learned during his training. Velmari. Rami was a soldier. Not just any soldier, but one chosen to serve in the peacekeeping force that worked between Earth and many other planets. His last mission was to a world called Velmari, a place far from Earth, home to tall, graceful aliens with shimmering skin and deep blue eyes. It was a dangerous mission, but he had done his duty well. More than duty, he had saved a life. The life of Princess Alari, the future ruler of Velmari. Rami remembered the battle clearly. Their forces had been attacked by an enemy that wanted to destroy the peace talks between Velmari and Earth. In the chaos, Princess Alari had been trapped alone. Without thinking, Rami had run to her rescue, fighting through dangers he never thought he would face. In the end, he had carried her to safety, even when he himself was hurt. Now, months after returning home, the golden envelope had come. Rami slowly opened it. Inside was a folded piece of fine paper. The writing was elegant and formal, but easy to read. To Rami, our honored guest and savior, you are invited to the royal wedding of Princess Alari of Velmari. Your presence is requested at the palace on the 15th day of the next cycle. Rami blinked. A royal wedding? Why would he be invited to a royal wedding? He was just a soldier, a human. He put the letter down and thought carefully. The mission was over. The war had ended peacefully, and he had returned to his quiet life. But this invitation was strange. It was official and personal at the same time. His mind raced with questions. Was this a thank you, a sign of respect, or something more? After a long moment, Rami stood up and looked out of his window. The city. Lights of Earth blinked like stars below him. His life had always been about orders, missions, and survival. But now, a new journey was calling. He made his decision. Rami packed his bag. He chose simple clothes and his trusted combat jacket. He took his identification and the letter with him. Tomorrow, he would leave Earth and return to Velmari. The next morning, Rami arrived at the spaceport. The ship that would take him to Velmari was sleek and fast, built for long journeys between stars. As he boarded, he felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He had been a soldier all his life, but this trip was different. The journey was long. Through the window, Rami watched the stars move past like glowing ribbons. He thought about the princess and the strange invitation. What kind of wedding was this? Was it a celebration, or a ceremony with deeper meaning? When the ship finally reached Velmari, Rami felt his heart beat faster. The planet was even more beautiful than he remembered. Vast purple forests stretched across the land, glowing softly under twin suns. The sky was filled with sparkling clouds that shimmered like jewels. As he stepped off the ship, Rami was met by a group of Velmarian guards. They wore elegant armor that shone like silver. Their eyes showed respect, but also something deeper, hope, perhaps. They led Rami to a grand carriage made of crystal and gold. It carried him through the city to the royal palace. The palace was like nothing Rami had ever seen. Towers of glass and stone rose high into the sky. The walls glowed with soft light, and beautiful gardens surrounded the building. The air was filled with the scent of exotic flowers. Inside the palace, Rami was greeted by a crowd of nobles and officials. They bowed as he entered, whispering words in the Velmarian language. He did not understand all their words, but their eyes showed admiration. Then he saw her. Princess Alari stood at the center of the hall. She was taller than most humans, with smooth skin that shone faintly blue. Her eyes were deep and wise, filled with kindness and strength. Her hair fell like silver waves around her shoulders. Alari smiled when she saw Rami. It was a warm smile, but also full of meaning. "Welcome back, Rami," she said softly. Rami nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and confusion. "Thank you, Princess." Over the next hours, Rami was shown to his room and given a special place at the palace. Everyone treated him not just as a guest, but as someone important, almost like family. He was invited to meetings with the royal council, where they spoke quietly about the wedding plans. Each time, someone looked at Rami as if waiting for his approval. Rami began to wonder what was really happening. At dinner, Princess Alari sat beside him. They talked quietly about the world, their people, and the future. "You saved my life," Alari said. "More than that, you changed the fate of Velmari. For that, you will always have a place here." Rami smiled but felt unsure. "I did only what was needed. I am no one special." Alari shook her head. "You are special to us, more than you know." That night, Rami lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his room. The stars outside shone brightly. The invitation to the wedding was more than just an invitation. It was a turning point. Rami did not yet understand how deeply his life was about to change. But one thing was certain. The human soldier had crossed, a line from which there was no return. The story was just beginning. The next morning, Rami woke up early. Sunlight poured gently through the wide windows of his room in the royal palace. Outside, the city of Velmari was already alive with sound and movement. Birds with bright feathers sang sweet songs, and soft breezes carried the scent of strange flowers. Everything looked calm, but inside, Rami felt a storm of questions. He dressed quickly in the clothes provided for him, simple but finely made robes that shimmered lightly with a blue glow. As he looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The soldier he had been on Earth seemed far away now. Here, on Velmari, he was something different. People looked at him with respect and hope, but no one had yet told him why. Downstairs, a servant arrived to guide him to the royal hall. As they walked through long corridors lined with crystal lamps, Rami noticed the quiet energy in the air. The palace was more than a building. It felt like a living place, full of history and secrets. When they entered the main hall, a crowd of Velmarians had gathered. Some were dressed in fine clothes, others wore official robes. All eyes turned to Rami as he stepped inside. The room was filled with soft light coming from the ceiling, where energy crystals floated gently, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Rami saw Princess Alari standing at the front. She wore a long dress of white and silver, decorated with delicate patterns that looked like stars. Her face was calm, but serious. When she saw Rami, her lips curved into a small smile. The crowd began to speak softly in Velmarian, a language Rami had only begun to learn. He could not understand the words, but their meaning was clear. They were welcoming him. A tall Velmarian named Velnar stepped forward. He wore the blue robes of the royal council and bowed deeply to Rami. Chosen. One, he said in careful common tongue, we honor your arrival. Your presence brings hope to Velmari. Rami blinked. Chosen one? He asked quietly. I am just a soldier. Why do you call me that? Velnar smiled kindly. You may not understand yet, but you have been chosen by the ancient laws of Velmari. You have a special place here. Before Rami could ask more, Alari spoke again. Rami, come with me. There is much to explain. She led him through another corridor to a private room filled with books and glowing artifacts. Alari sat near a large window, watching the forests below. Rami, she began softly, when you saved my life during the battle, you did more than just protect me. You awakened an old promise, one that our people have kept for thousands of years. Rami listened carefully, but he did not understand. Alari continued. Long ago, the Velmarians made a pact. If the royal bloodline is ever saved by a foreigner, that person can become bonded to the princess. This bond is sacred. It is more than marriage. It is a joining of two lives, two worlds. Rami's heart beat faster. You mean me? I'm supposed to be bonded to you? Alari nodded. Yes. It is why you have been called the Chosen One. The laws of Velmari say that you must be honored, and the wedding is not just a ceremony. It is a tradition that seals this bond. Rami sat back in his chair, trying to understand. I never knew. No one told me this before. I thought I was just invited as a guest. Alari's eyes were soft but serious. I did not tell you because I wanted you to decide freely. This bond is not forced. You must choose. Rami stared out the window. The vast forests of Velmari looked peaceful and endless, but inside him questions swirled like storms. Why me? He asked finally. I'm just a human. Why would your people accept me like this? Alari smiled faintly. Because you showed courage, kindness, and respect. You did not treat me as a princess, but as a person. That means more than you know. Rami felt a strange warmth in his chest. For the first time, he saw Alari not just as a royal, but as someone real, someone who trusted him. Still, the thought of being bonded to her was difficult. Could two beings from such different worlds truly join their lives? Could he live among Velmarians, learn their ways, and accept their culture? Alari seemed to read his thoughts. I know this is hard, but the bond is not just about rules or ceremony. It is about trust and hope. We have a chance to bring our worlds together. Rami nodded slowly. I want to understand. I want to try. Alari reached out and took his hand gently. Then we will face this journey together. After their talk, Rami was shown more of the palace. He met the royal council, a group of wise Velmarians who discussed the future of their world. They welcomed him warmly, but it was clear they waited for his decision. In the days that followed, Rami learned more about Velmarian culture. He discovered their deep respect for nature, their traditions of peace, and the strength of their bonds to family and community. Though different from Earth, their values felt familiar. He spent time with Alari, talking about everything, from the stars to simple joys like music and food. She showed him the palace gardens, filled with glowing flowers and gentle streams. She laughed softly when he struggled to pronounce Velmarian words. But not all was calm. Some voices in the palace whispered doubts about the bond. A few nobles did not trust a human to join their royal family. They feared change and the unknown. Rami noticed the tension but chose to focus on what he could control, earning their trust and understanding Alari's world. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the mountains, Rami stood on the balcony, overlooking the city. The sky turned soft shades of pink and orange. For a moment, he felt the weight of everything, the mission, the invitation, the bond. But beside him stood Alari, quiet and steady. "Do you still have doubts?" she asked gently. Rami looked at her and smiled. "I do, but I also have hope. I want to be part of this if you will have me." Alari squeezed his hand. "Then together, we will face whatever comes." The palace bells rang softly in the distance, marking the passing of another day. Rami knew the days ahead would be full of challenges and surprises. But for the first time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was meant to be. The story of the human soldier and the alien princess was just beginning. Days passed quietly in the royal palace, but Rami's mind was busy. The idea of the bond with Princess Alari stayed with him, sometimes like a soft whisper, sometimes like a thunder in his heart. He wanted to understand more about the ancient Velmarian laws that spoke of this bond. What did it really mean? What would his life become? One morning after breakfast, Alari invited him to visit the royal archives, a place where Velmari kept the memories of its past. She said it was time for him to learn the full truth. The archives were deep underground, in a vast hall filled with glowing books and crystals. The air smelled of old paper and a strange, clean scent. Rami felt a shiver of excitement and respect. This place was the heart of Velmarian history. Alari led him to a large crystal table that showed moving images, stories from hundreds of years ago. She touched the surface gently, and the scenes changed, showing kings and queens, great battles, and peaceful times. "This is our history," she explained, "and the story of the bond is one of the oldest parts." Rami leaned forward, watching closely as an image appeared of a princess surrounded by shadowy figures. The princess was in danger, trapped by enemies. Then, a figure from a faraway land appeared, fighting bravely to save her. "This is the beginning of the pact," Alari said softly. "Long ago, a foreign warrior saved our princess. To honor this, our people made a law. If the royal bloodline is saved by a foreigner, that person can become bonded to the princess. The bond is sacred. It joins two lives forever." Rami's eyes widened. "Forever?" Alari nodded. "Yes, it is a serious promise, one that changes everything. The bond is stronger than friendship or marriage. It connects minds and hearts, creating a partnership that lasts a lifetime." Rami thought about what this meant. The bond was not just a word or a ceremony. It was a deep connection. It was not just about two people, but about two worlds coming together. But why has no one told me this before? Rami asked, feeling a little hurt. Alari looked at him with understanding. Because we wanted you to choose freely. Many in Velmari respect your courage, but the choice must be yours, not forced by tradition. Rami nodded slowly. He felt the weight of the responsibility, but also a strange sense of honor. Alari then showed him the next part of the story, a vision of the trial of harmony, a ceremony where the bond is tested. The images showed couples working together to overcome difficult challenges. The trial was not about strength, but about trust, cooperation, and understanding. The trial is important, Alari said. It shows if the bond is true. We must face it before the wedding. Rami felt a mixture of nervousness and hope. The trial would be difficult, but it was a chance to prove himself, not just to the Velmarians, but to Alari and to himself. As they left the archives, Alari smiled. You are already special to us, Rami. The bond is a symbol of hope between our people. If you accept it, you will help build a new future. Rami looked at her and then at the bright sky above. He knew the days ahead would be full of change. He was no longer just a soldier from Earth. He was part of something greater. That evening, Rami sat in the palace garden, watching glowing flowers bloom under the stars. His thoughts wandered to Earth, his home, his family. He wondered how they would feel knowing he was about to join an alien world in a sacred bond. A gentle voice broke his thoughts. Rami. He turned to see Alari approaching, her eyes soft in the moonlight. Have you made a choice? She asked. Rami took a deep breath. I want to try. I want to understand this bond. But I need to learn more, to be ready. Alari nodded. I will help you. We will face the trial together. The next days were busy with preparations. Rami learned more about Velmarian customs, their language, and their way of life. He trained with Alari, practicing the skills needed for the trial of harmony. The palace buzzed with excitement and whispers. The wedding date drew closer, and the whole world seemed to watch. One afternoon, while walking through the city market, Rami felt the eyes of some people on him. Not all were friendly. He heard quiet words of doubt. A human? Bonded to our princess? It is not right. But the chosen one has courage, another voice said. Rami understood that acceptance would take time. Some Velmarians were unsure, but others hoped. That night he shared his feelings with Alari. Not everyone welcomes me, he said. I do not know if I am ready to face all of this. Alari held his hand firmly. You are stronger than you think. The bond is not just about you or me. It is about all of us, our people, our future. Rami felt a new strength grow inside him. He was not alone. The day of the trial arrived. The whole palace gathered in the great arena, a beautiful open space filled with ancient symbols. The trial was not a fight, but a challenge of trust and harmony. Rami and Alari stood side by side, ready to begin. The first challenge was to guide, a wild energy stream through a maze of glowing stones without breaking the flow. They had to communicate without words, trusting each other's instincts. Rami reached out, feeling the strange power pulse in his hands. Alari's eyes met his, calm and steady. Together, they moved through the maze. When one hesitated, the other helped. When one saw a path, the other followed. The crowd watched in silence, amazed at their teamwork. The trial continued with tests of patience, balance, and understanding. At each step, Rami and Alari grew closer, their bond stronger. When the trial ended, the Velmarians erupted in applause. The council declared that the bond was true. Rami looked at Alari, his heart full of hope. The ancient pact had brought them together, but their journey was just beginning. After the trial of harmony, the palace was filled with a quiet joy. The people of Velmari celebrated the bond between Rami and Princess Alari. Yet, inside Rami, a mix of emotions churned. He was proud to have passed the trial, but many questions still needed answers. One afternoon, Alari invited Rami to walk with her in the palace gardens. The sun was warm and gentle breezes moved the leaves. They found a quiet spot beneath a large tree with silver bark and soft blue flowers. Alari looked at Rami with deep eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 thoughts. "There is something I must tell you," she began softly. Rami turned to her, curious and ready. "When I invited you to Velmari," Alari said, "it was because I trusted you, but I did not tell you everything." Rami listened carefully. He felt the seriousness in her voice. "The ancient law gave me the choice to accept the bond," she continued. "I could have refused it, but I did not. Not because of duty or pressure, but because of what I saw in you." Rami's heart beat faster. "What did you see?" Alari smiled gently. "I saw courage, not just in battle, but in how you treat others. You were honest, kind, and brave. You did not see me as a princess, but as a person. That meant more than anything." Rami felt a warmth spread through him. He had not expected such words, but they touched him deeply. "But why tell me this now?" Rami asked. "Because the bond is not just a law," Alari said. "It is a promise between two people. I want you to know that my choice is real. It is not forced, and it is not only tradition. It is about us." Rami looked at her, searching her face. He saw truth there, and something more. Hope. "I want to be honest with you," Alari said quietly. "The bond will change our lives. It will not be easy. Our worlds are different, and some will not accept us." Rami nodded. "I know. I have felt it already. Some people in the palace watch me with doubt." Alari took his hand. "Together we can face them. Together we can build a new future." Rami squeezed her hand in return. "I want that. I want to try." They sat quietly for a moment. The sounds of the garden around them, the soft hum of insects, the rustling leaves, the distant song of birds. Alari's voice broke the silence. "There is one more thing." Rami looked at her. "In Velmarian tradition, when two people are bonded, they share more than words. The bond connects their thoughts and feelings. It is a deep link between hearts." Rami was surprised. "You mean we will share our minds?" Alari nodded. "Yes. It is a gift, but also a challenge. We will learn about each other in ways no one else can. It will bring us closer, but we must be patient." Rami took a deep breath. The idea was new and strange, but he felt ready to face it. "I want to understand you," he said. "And I want to understand you," Alari replied. In the days that followed, Rami and Alari spent more time together, learning about each other's worlds and hopes. They talked about Earth's cities, its people, and its dreams. Alari shared stories of Velmari's history, its stars, and its quiet forests. They laughed, sometimes stumbled over words, but always found a way to connect. One evening, as the twin moons rose in the sky, Rami stood on the palace balcony looking out at the glowing city below. Alari joined him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "Do you feel ready for the wedding?" she asked. Rami smiled. "I am still nervous, but I know I want this. To be with you, to be part of something bigger." Alari nodded. "I feel the same." Suddenly, a messenger arrived with urgent news. A small village near the palace was facing a sudden energy storm, dangerous winds and glowing storms that threatened homes and lives. Rami's soldier instincts kicked in. "We should help them," he said. Alari agreed. "This is a test, too. If we work together, it will show everyone that the bond is strong." Without hesitation, they prepared to leave the palace and travel to the village. As they moved through the halls, the palace staff watched with hope and concern. Outside, the storm raged. Bright lightning danced across the sky, and the wind bent the trees like they were made of paper. At the village, Rami and Alari joined the locals in creating barriers and shelters. Rami used his training to organize the people, while Alari called upon Velmarian energy to calm the wild storm. Working side by side, they faced the challenge together. When the storm finally passed, the village was safe. The people cheered, and Rami felt a new sense of belonging. He was no longer just a soldier or a guest. He was part of Velmari's future. That night, back in the palace, Rami and Alari stood together under the stars. "Today showed me something important," Rami said quietly. "No matter where we come from, what matters is how we face life. Together." Alari smiled. "And that is the true meaning of the bond." The days until the wedding passed quickly, but for Rami, each moment was filled with new understanding and hope. The human soldier was no longer unaware. He was ready to embrace his new life with the alien princess by his side. The days grew shorter as the wedding day approached. The palace buzzed with preparations. Soft music filled the halls, delicate decorations hung from every corner, and the scent of fresh flowers floated through the air. Yet beneath the beauty and excitement, there was a serious task still to be done. Rami and Princess Alari faced the final challenge before the wedding, a test called the Trial of Unity. This was a ceremony ancient as Velmari itself. It was not a battle or contest of strength, but a test of harmony, trust, and cooperation. It was meant to show that the bond between them was real and strong enough to unite their two worlds. The trial would take place in the fields of Zira, a sacred place outside the city where the energy of the planet pulsed strongest. The challenge was to calm a wild energy storm that threatened a small Velmarian village nearby. The storm was unlike any natural disaster on Earth. It was a living force of light and wind, dangerous but full of strange beauty. Early one morning, Rami and Alari traveled together to the fields of Zira. The path wound through glowing forests and hills that shimmered softly under the twin suns. The air hummed with power, making Rami feel alive and alert. At the edge of the village, they found the storm already raging. Bright bolts of energy struck the ground, and fierce winds tore through the trees. The villagers watched anxiously, hoping for help. Rami looked at Alari. "How do we stop it?" Alari smiled softly. Together, they moved to the center of the field, where the energy storm swirled like a living creature. Alari closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, calling upon the power of Velmari's energy crystals. Rami watched, feeling a strange warmth spread through him. "Try to feel the rhythm," Alari said. "It's not just force. It has a pulse, a pattern." Rami focused, trying to sense the energy around him. Slowly, he felt a beat, a steady, powerful rhythm like a heartbeat. He matched his breathing to it, opening his mind and trusting Alari. The storm flickered, and the wild energy began to slow. Together, they reached out with their minds and hands, weaving a calm field around the village. It was like a dance, moving carefully, stepping back when the storm surged, moving forward when it softened. The villagers joined in, holding hands and adding their own energy to the effort. The bond between Rami and Alari grew stronger with each moment. After hours of careful work, the storm finally calmed completely. The winds stopped howling, and the bright lightning faded to soft sparks. The village was safe. The people cheered and thanked Rami and Alari. For many, this was proof that the bond was not just a tradition, but a new hope for the future. Rami looked at Alari, feeling a deep connection. He realized that this was not just a test of power. It was a test of trust. They had to listen to each other, support each other, and work as one. As they walked back to the palace, Alari spoke quietly. "You did well. You showed more than strength. You showed heart." Rami smiled. "I could not have done it without you." That evening, the palace held a celebration for their success. Music filled the grand halls, and guests from many worlds danced under shimmering lights. Rami found himself laughing and sharing stories with Velmarians and humans alike. He saw the hope in their eyes, a hope that two different peoples could come together. Later, in a quiet room, Alari and Rami sat together away from the crowd. "Do you still have doubts?" Alari asked. Rami shook his head. "No, I believe in us now. I believe that this bond can change more than just our lives." Alari reached out and took his hand. "Then we are ready." The next day, Rami and Alari visited the village again. The people greeted them warmly, showing how the storm had brought them closer. Parents smiled as children played, and elders spoke of new beginnings. Rami watched the simple joy in their faces and knew that the bond was more than ceremony. It was a bridge between worlds. He looked at Alari, feeling grateful and strong. Together, they were ready to face whatever came next. The wedding day was near, and with it came new challenges and new hopes. Rami, the human soldier, was no longer just a visitor in a strange world. He was becoming part of a new story, one of unity, courage, and hope for all. The days after the wedding were filled with joy, but also new responsibilities for Rami. He was no longer just a soldier or a guest on Velmari. Now he was the bonded partner of Princess Alari, the future queen. His life had changed forever. Thatapi. Royal Council gathered to discuss the future. Rami listened carefully as leaders from Velmari and Earth spoke of peace, cooperation, and shared goals. His role was clear. He would be named Royal Ambassador, a bridge between Earth and Velmari, helping both worlds understand each other better. At first, the idea seemed overwhelming. Rami was a soldier, not a diplomat. But Alari's steady support gave him courage. "We will learn together," she said. "We will face every challenge side by side." Together they traveled to Earth for the first time since the wedding. Rami showed Alari the cities, the rivers, and the people he had left behind. Alari was amazed by the diversity and strength of Earth's cultures. In return, Rami shared Velmari's stories and wisdom with Earth's leaders. His unique position gave him insight that few others had, a human who understood the alien, an alien who embraced the human. Slowly, the worlds began to grow closer. Trade routes opened, scientific teams exchanged ideas, and cultural festivals celebrated the new friendship. Yet not everything was easy. Some people on both planets doubted the alliance. They questioned the bond between Rami and Alari, worried that differences would cause problems. But time proved them wrong. Rami and Alari faced difficulties together, misunderstandings, fears, and unexpected challenges. Each time, they remembered the bond that united them, the trust they had built. One day, as they stood on the bridge of their ship traveling between worlds, Rami looked at Alari and smiled. "Do you remember the first day you came to Velmari?" he asked. Alari laughed softly. "How could I forget? You were confused, tired, and a little angry," Rami chuckled. "And you were calm, mysterious, and very patient." They both laughed, the sound light and full of hope. "Look how far we've come," Alari said, her eyes shining. "From strangers to partners, from two worlds to one." Rami took her hand. "This is only the beginning. Together we can build a future no one dreamed possible." As the stars passed by their window, they felt a deep peace. The human soldier and the alien princess were no longer separate. They were united by a bond stronger than any distance, any difference. Their story was a story of hope, a story that showed the true power of humanity, not weapons, not strength, but connection. Together, they would lead their people into a new age of peace, friendship, and endless possibilities. The human soldier had found a new home, and the galaxy would never be the same. The days after the wedding were filled with joy, but also new responsibilities for Rami. He was no longer just a soldier or a guest on Velmari. Now he was the bonded partner of Princess Alari, the future queen. His life had changed forever. Thatapi. Royal Council gathered to discuss the future. Rami listened carefully as leaders from Velmari and Earth spoke of peace, cooperation, and shared goals. His role was clear. He would be named Royal Ambassador, a bridge between Earth and Velmari, helping both worlds understand each other better. At first, the idea seemed overwhelming. Rami was a soldier, not a diplomat. But Alari's steady support gave him courage. "We will learn together," she said. "We will face every challenge side by side." Together they traveled to Earth for the first time since the wedding. Rami showed Alari the cities, the rivers, and the people he had left behind. Alari was amazed by the diversity and strength of Earth's cultures. In return, Rami shared Velmari's stories and wisdom with Earth's leaders. His unique position gave him insight that few others had, a human who understood the alien, an alien who embraced the human. Slowly, the worlds began to grow closer. Trade routes opened, scientific teams exchanged ideas, and cultural festivals celebrated the new friendship. Yet not everything was easy. Some people on both planets doubted the alliance. They questioned the bond between Rami and Alari, worried that differences would cause problems. But time proved them wrong. Rami and Alari faced difficulties together, misunderstandings, fears, and unexpected challenges. Each time, they remembered the bond that united them, the trust they had built. One day, as they stood on the bridge of their ship traveling between worlds, Rami looked at Alari and smiled. "Do you remember the first day you came to Velmari?" he asked. Alari laughed softly. "How could I forget? You were confused, tired, and a little angry," Rami chuckled. "And you were calm, mysterious, and very patient." They both laughed, the sound light and full of hope. "Look how far we've come," Alari said, her eyes shining. "From strangers to partners, from two worlds to one." Rami took her hand. "This is only the beginning. Together we can build a future no one dreamed possible." As the stars passed by their window, they felt a deep peace. The human soldier and the alien princess were no longer separate. They were united by a bond stronger than any distance, any difference. Their story was a story of hope, a story that showed the true power of humanity, not weapons, not strength, but connection. Together, they would lead their people into a new age of peace, friendship, and endless possibilities. The human soldier had found a new home, and the galaxy would never be the same.